We are now doing Lab 7, the Skeletal System 2, Appendicular Skeleton Articulations. Your appendicular skeleton is made up of your arms, your legs, and the girdles that attach the arms and the legs to the axial skeleton. For the arm, it is called the pectoral girdle, and it is made up of two bones. The two bones the pectoral girdle is made up of is the clavicle, which you used to call your collarbone, but now will not. Your clavicle has two ends. It has one boxy end, it looks more like square, and that end will touch against the sternum at the manubrium, and the other end, which is more flattened, will touch the scapula at the acromion, which is this higher process right here. Your scapula, the second bone of the pectoral girdle, it used to be called your shoulder blade, no longer, is going to be in the back. It's posterior. This is the anterior surface of the scapula, okay, which will come up against muscles. And then we have the posterior surface. Now we have a number of processes. The taller process is called the acromion, and the acromion, or acromial process, is continuous with the spine. You can see the spine that runs up the back. This is all for muscle attachment. The lower processes, which is the anterior, is the coronoid process. And in between these two processes, there's this dent, and this dent is called the glenoid cavity or fossa. Below the glenoid cavity, there is a bump that runs down right below it, and this is called the infraglenoid tubercle. A tubercle is usually a bump of some sort. When you're looking at the scapula, okay, this is going to be the lateral side, because your shoulder arm has to hang off here. This is going to be the medial side of your scapula. The next bones are the bones of the arm. You have one upper arm bone. This is your humerus. Your humerus is going to have a number of dents down in the distal end where it will articulate with the other two lower limb bones. At the top of the humerus, we have a rounded area, which is the head of the humerus. Hangs down here so you can see. This is the head. It's rounded, and it is going to go into the glenoid fossa or cavity to make up the shoulder joint. On the opposite side of the head, there is a large bump, and this is called the greater tubercle. And right below the head, there is a smaller bump. It's farther down. The greater is up here. The one that's below is the lesser tubercle. And in between these two, there is a groove. This groove runs between the two tubercles and is called the intertubercular groove. Inter means between. Tubercle, between the tubercles, we have a groove or a sulci. You can call it either, is fine. Okay. We have on the now this is the lateral side. On the lateral side, there's a rough area about halfway down, which is called the deltoid tuberosity, which is where your deltoid muscle, the muscle of your shoulder, will attach down here, and it will pull on the bone at that point. Okay. We also have down at the other end a number of a number of fossas or dents. Now, the lower end, the distal end, has a rounded lateral surface. It looks like a little bump here. This is called the capitellum. And then we have a surface here that goes all the way around to the back. This is the trochlea. These are going to articulate with your lower limbs. Okay. Above the trochlea, there's a dent called the coronoid fossa, and a little tiny dent right above the capitellum called the radial fossa. And on the back, we have a dent that is called the olecranon fossa. I'm trying to get the angle here so you can see these fossa a little better. Okay. So those are the different fossa. Those are going to articulate with the bones of the ulna. Okay. On either side, above the capitellum and above the trochlea, we have a little enlargement. These are called epicondyles. Epi means above, condyle means articulation, so these are above the articulation. Okay. The next bones we're going to look at are your radius and ulna, and these are bones of the lower limb. Okay, your radius is going to be, remember we're doing anatomical position, so your palm up or your palm out, your thumb is going here. Your radius is going to come down and attach at the thumb, And when you rotate your arm in, your radius will rotate over the ulna. Your radius, round, has a round end. This is the only bone with a round end. Okay? This round end is called the head of the radius, and right below that is a bump. The bump is the tubercle of the radius, and at the distal end we have a little pointy structure. It's another styloid process, like we saw in the skull, okay? Skinny styloid, and this is the radial styloid process. The ulna, the second bone of the forearm, which will be medial, also has a styloid process at the distal end. Okay? The top, the proximal end, is much more complicated. It looks C-shaped. Now, recall the names of the parts of the humerus. We had the trochlear, the coronoid, the trochlear, coronoid, and your olecranon. We have an olecranon process, which will go into the olecranon. This is the top of the C. The trochlear notch, which will rotate around the trochlea. This is the middle part of the C. And the coronoid process, which will go into the coronoid fossa. Okay? So when we put these two together, we're going to put our arm together like this, and we're going to watch how when you bend your arm, this will rotate. And when you bend your arm, the trochlea is sitting in the trochlear notch of the ulna. The olecranon, if your arm is straight, will be tucked into the olecranon fossa. And when it bends, the coronoid process goes into the coronoid fossa. Okay? Your radius will rotate around the capitellum, okay? And they will then form the two bones of the lower arm, the forearm. And your ulna also has a little dent here, which is where your radius is going to sit to rotate around, and that is called your radial fossa. Okay. The last part of the arm is your hand. Okay. Now your hand, it's like this. Okay, remember it's anatomically correct here. So we're going to have wrist bones. We have 8 wrist bones, which we will get back to. Then the palm of your hand is made up of metacarpals. Carpal for your hand. We're going to talk about metatarsals in the foot. Then we have a number of bones that make up your phalanges, your fingers. Each of your phalanges is made up of 3 bones. They're called the proximal phalange, the middle phalange, and the distal phalange. Those 4 fingers, your index finger to your pinky, have 4. Your thumb has only 2. It has proximal and distal phalanges. Okay. Now back to your wrist bones. With your wrist bones, we have 2 rows of 4 bones. We're going to start at the base of the thumb, and we're going to go over, and then we're going to come back and start again at that side and go over. At the base of the thumb is the trapezium, and you can look at it from either side. I find it's easier to look at this way because we have the pisiform is on one side, and we have some structures that are easier seen. Now, the base of the thumb is the trapezium. Then next to it is a little tiny bone that looks like it's tucked in there. That's the trapezoid. He's kind of trapped. At the base of your middle finger is the capitate. Capitate is the captain of your middle finger. And then we have the hamate with a hook. It's this structure that sticks out here. So that's your hamate bone with a little hook on it. Okay? Going back to the rows, we have the scaphoid, sort of scaffolding to hold up everything. The lunate, and then the next 2 are fused together. So these 2, the top bone, the one that looks like a little ball, is the pisiform, and then the one that's below it is called the triquetrium or triquetrial. Either is fine.